I'm Marcus Coward, and this is Wake Up New Bedford. We're here with Abby Rose. You can find her on social media at Abigail Rose. Abby, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And so we talked about so much in part one, but we still have a lot more to touch on, okay? And so one of the things I was really curious about was when you were mentioning how a lot of either your friends aren't buying, but a lot of your family might turn to your parents, okay? And we brought up that this area is very competitive when it comes to realtors, okay? Can you talk about how you've been able to navigate through the competition, what it's felt like? You know, do realtors talk? Do they get along? Or is it just like competition and everyone has to fend for themselves?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Sure.
Most realtors get along.
Okay.
My office is definitely like anti-competition. Like we love to truly support each other.
Okay.
We have just some great people that work there, and like when somebody else is succeeding, we're truly cheering them on.
That's amazing.
Which yeah, I love.
Yeah.
I have heard that there's some companies that are not like that
Sure.
and that are very competitive, catty, you know, sometimes some drama. Kind of like, I mean, you get that in any field.
Sure.
But I'm very lucky for the company that I do work for and the great people that are in our office. But it just really is. I mean, there is so many realtors.
Yeah.
So, you know, so many people, they know one, their cousin's one, their dad's one,
Yes.
their uncle, their friend, or just on social media, you see a million of them,
Yeah.
you know, just in this area alone. So it can be tricky, and that's why I try to just get to the pinpoints of like, this is what I have to offer and this is why I'm different. And I think that's just really important, and my clients feel that, and the reviews that they leave me really shows that. And I always say too, I'm not focused on being number one when it comes to numbers, right? Or production, and even the number one in the area. I'm focused on being number one for my clients.
Yes,
and I
absolutely.
think that part is just extra special, if that like my client felt like number one. Even though I was working with 10 other people at the time, they still felt a priority, their needs were met, they were listened to, and I found them the home that they truly wanted. And that's just most important to me. Like when my clients love me, there's truly nothing that makes me happier than that. So
Yeah.
being number one for my client is what's most important for me.
And so I just don't know if this is a case for any realtors, but are you in multiple deals ever at the same time?
Yes, so like working with multiple clients at the same
Yeah,
time?
yeah, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. So we do have, you know, sometimes I'll have a seller, 2 sellers, and then I have like quite a few, like right now I have quite a few buyers that are happening right now.
Okay.
So tomorrow will be a Saturday.
Yeah.
And I have 3 different clients that I'm showing 3 different houses to.
Really?
So
Okay.
I usually try to make a map for myself that makes the most sense.
Sure.
So like tomorrow will be a Cushionit, Raynham, and then back to New Bedford.
Okay.
So kind of all, you know, we'll loop around, and it's pretty local. However, there is some times where it takes me an hour to an hour and a half to get somewhere. And that can be with the same client, or then I come home and, you know, this more area and show a house to another client.
Sure.
But it's just, again, the biggest thing while you're doing that is to make sure that your clients feel like number one, and I do my best to show up to everything with all of my clients. Of course, I'm only human.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wish I could like have a mini Abby on the side
Yeah,
and
for
send
sure.
her away, you know, to do something. But I can't, but I do my best.
And so is that like pretty common to have multiple like clients at the same time?
I think it's pretty common.
Yeah.
However, there was an interesting statistic
Okay.
that NAR just came out with, which is the National Association of Realtors.
Interesting.
And over 75% of realtors in last year, 2024, didn't sell one house.
Wow.
And that's a huge statistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that really is huge. So I'm grateful to be busy.
Absolutely.
I always wish that I am busier, and
Yeah.
I'm happy to take on any new clients that would like to
Sure,
work with me.
sure.
However, I know that, you know, I'm lucky to do what I do and do what I love every single day. So some people, I'm sure, are not as busy. And then also with real estate too, it fluctuates. So like sometimes you can be really busy and have a lot of sales,
Yeah.
but you also need to be really good with your savings, because you might not have another
Yeah.
closing for 4 to 6 months.
Yeah.
So it's really key to make sure that you are good with your savings, you're good with what you're doing with your business. And that's like, a lot of people don't understand that when they get into real estate. They kind of think that it's quick, buku money, but you could actually work with a buyer or seller or client for 6 months and they can say, hey, I'm going in a different direction.
Yeah.
My family member's renting out this house, and that means that you get zero
Yes.
money from all that work that you just did.
And so I want to ask you about that, but I definitely just want to compliment you on the relationships that you're building, along with the reputation that you're building, really must speak for itself. In that you're keeping busy and you have people looking out for you, and exactly that you're still able to be successful in such a competitive market. But just like you said last year, there's so many, for all the realtors, that only 25% were even able to sell one house, you know, let alone stay busy with multiple clients. So it really speaks to just how good you are at your job.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to say that. But then you really touch on something I wanted to ask you about, where do people also aim to have multiple clients? Because like you just said, someone can just drop out of the process at any time. And then how often do people pull out of the process?
Yeah. It definitely can happen. So if I showed you my list of like everybody who sat down with me like just for a consultation and picked my brain about something versus the people that actually closed.
Yes, yeah, talk about that.
It's a big difference.
Sure.
And it really has nothing to do with like what I'm doing, but it's just about like, okay, they couldn't get pre-approved. Or we, again, something came up. They got a new job somewhere else. They bought a car, which is another thing that they cannot do.
Okay.
There's just certain things that, you know, can happen and life comes up and things change. So yeah, it is good to be, you know, busy, but it's kind of whenever the clients are coming, you know, to you, and like I said, it kind of comes in, it's kind of a roller coaster ride, and it comes in fluctuations and stuff, but I love to be busy. I definitely also love the balance of life. So as much as I love real estate and I love to work, I also love to travel and be with my friends and family and my dog, you know, so I like to also be like human.
Are you able to travel like in balance that personal life, like with staying so busy? How is that?
So when I first started, I was definitely like 24/7, like 24/7 availability, and you hear that from a lot of agents. However, I definitely had some clients that like thought that was like really like she's gonna be 100% 24/7 available. So I started, you know, to kind of set their expectations too of like, okay, this is truly 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. almost every day. Sometimes Sundays are family days, you know what I mean? But I'm really good at letting my clients know, like if I know that I'm actively working with somebody and I'm gonna be away, I tell them, you know, they get my first, so I don't have a job that I need to tell a boss where I'm going, but I need to tell my clients where I'm going, you know? And I just make sure that they always know that. I never wanna have a client that reaches out to me and says like, you know, where is she? Why is she not getting back to me? My clients always know, and then I always have somebody that's handling something for me when I'm gone.
Okay.
And then right away, my clients know, okay, this is who I reach out to. You know, if I need anything, well, Abby is away. But it is really good to, just like any job, decompress. Because it's not a 9-to-5 job, I'm always working.
Sure.
So it's hard. You know, my friends know that when we can go to a beach day, I need to excuse myself sometimes and take a phone call.
Sure.
It was actually funny. I was with a group of friends at the beach, and somebody called me. And they're like, oh, are you busy right now? And I was like, well, I'm at the beach for
just
a friend's
bit,
thing. And sometimes people, they didn't really catch that, you know, and they just said, and I'm like, oh, if you hear the waves crashing, like, this is what I'm doing. And they just keep, and so eventually, I'm like so into detail. It was actually a relatively important conversation, and we're trying to figure something out for a client. And all of a sudden, the waves are just hitting my feet.
And you like forgot where you were.
Yes, I forgot. Also, though, I forgot, and all my friends are way up there. And they're like, Abby, we told you we were picking our stuff up because the waves were coming, but we didn't want to like yell because you were busy. And there's been so many times of just like that, of like, I need to excuse myself, or I need to do this. It is very much like, that's why we kind of refer to it as 24/7. But I just make sure that, you know, I'm always working around my client schedules and doing the best that I can for them.
And then especially with the social media, like you know, it's not like you get paid for that either. So that just like that really could be another job that you just have to
I
fit
definitely
in
is
somewhere.
another job of like, so you have the aspect of like what you're doing for your clients, and then you're prospecting for clients. So prospecting for clients means, okay, like how do I find like my next client? Like what am I gonna do to, what's my new networking event? What's my new marketing material? What's my new this? So there are days where it's just like, bombarded with stuff that's not necessarily client-focused things.
Yep.
It's more of like, okay, what is my next endeavor and what am I doing for?
And like research, really. Yeah, like marketing research.
Yeah, and then always like doing tons of trainings too. My company offers so many trainings, which is awesome. I'm always trying to learn, because I always tell my clients too, there is no question that's a dumb question.
Sure.
And I say, if you have to ask me 72 times, I'm going to answer it. It's my fault if you're not understanding it by that point, you know, and it never gets to that point. But I'm always like, please, like, don't ever think, especially with a first-time home buyer, like, don't ever think that something's silly or that you can't call me. I want to make sure that you know exactly what we're doing in the process. And my clients feel that way all the time. Like, Abby, like, you explained this so well, and this has just been like a breath of fresh air. Like, I was so nervous, but you truly told me, like, I'm gonna look at stuff and I'm gonna sign stuff and you're gonna handle the rest, and that's exactly what I did. So it's
and I was telling you in part one that you do an amazing job at explaining things, but that you pride yourself in making your customers feel valued and being there for them, and just that, you know, me not owning a home, but I was able to interview one realtor before that I just learned so much, and he was saying so many different terms I'd never even thought to think of before.
Right.
And so it really must take some patience along with a lot of knowledge to deal with these people who know nothing about something that's so important to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had a lot of clients too that have come to me after like their second or third realtor, and they're like, hey, this has not worked out, you know, what can you do anything different? And I'm like, okay, well, let me hear your story of why it hasn't worked out yet. You know, because if it's truly a neglect on them or they weren't doing their part, which happens, then yes, you know, or if it's something maybe that's normal, I'll be like, well, I can, you know, something. But I'm like, all right, let me pull my, you know, rabbit out of the hat and see what I can do for you guys. And they'll say stuff, and I'm like, oh, like, what do you mean they didn't do this?
Yeah.
And then I'll work with them, and the way that they're asking me questions, I'm like, hey, I want you to ask these, but weren't you working with somebody, you know? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, and they didn't explain any of this.
Really?
And they're like, no.
Wow.
I'm like, that's scary. Like, that is actually a concern of mine. And there's realtors too that like, so when I'm going to show a house for a buyer, I'm like Inspector Gadget. My head is on a swivel because I get like a headache trying to look for things that you're not gonna see.
Yes.
And it's important that I'm doing that, you know? So I'm looking for the leaks. I'm using all 5 of my senses. What does this smell? I'm feeling something, whatever. And my clients really value that. However, and it's not to bash my industry at all, but there are people that come in that they just open the door for their client.
Wow.
And there's, you know, I'm the one that's like, okay, this is this about the house, but even when they're going around, there's nothing, they're not adding any more like knowledge for their client.
Absolutely.
And to me, that's sad.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of people that come into open houses, which this is what we see a lot, that I say, hey, you working with a realtor? And they say, yes. And I say, oh, awesome, what's their name? They don't know. So to me, that really means that somebody, maybe you found somebody online, maybe on Zillow, you typed something in and you got them their information, but that's not truly working with somebody.
Absolutely.
Like my clients know if for some reason I wasn't able to make it and they're like, Abby, I'm confident enough to go on my own. You don't need to send somebody. Like, I get your way. They know, like, I am working with Abby Rose.
Yes,
like, this is who. And by then too, they're already like, oh, Abby, sometimes they come back to me and it's so cute. They're like, you would be so proud of me because I noticed this thing here. And that the other people didn't even notice that, and I noticed it because I remember when you said that, and, like, and that makes me feel so proud.
Yeah, like you're their teacher.
Yes, right. And I love that. Like, there's just really nothing that feels better to me than that. Like, those are my proud moments of like, wow, like I'm such a super special and important part of somebody's life journey.
Yeah.
Like, that is such a big purchase, and like, you worked with me. I think that's just like so great. And then also that like I can teach people something. So that's just key of like working with a good realtor, and a realtor is going to show up for you and do the work of the reason of why they should be getting paid, you know, for something.
Sure. And so I'm curious about, you say that you're working in an office, okay, but then you also say that you're working with your parents and it's a family business. Okay, so like, can you just talk about that? Like, is the office with your family, or is it with other realtors, or?
Yeah, so I work for Rose Homes Layer Realty Partners.
Okay.
So Layer is it's actually the #1 independently owned brokerage in New England, which is awesome, and it's female owned, which I think is also really cool.
Yes.
So we powered with layer.
Okay.
So that way we could still be a local brokerage and real estate company while having all the same resources as the big guys.
Sure.
So anything that those big companies that you see all their commercials for, you know, we can do everything that they can do. However, when you're with us, you feel like the same way you feel when you go to that mom and pop shop.
Yes.
Like, they remember your name, they remember your order, they remember the type of coffee that you like right off the bat, you're creating those relationships, which I think is what my clients, you know, love. So even our agents too. So yes, it is. My parents are the owners and the brokers of the company, so they're the head. And then I help them. Sometimes I play a little bit of an office manager role as well.
Sure.
And then we have a bunch of agents that work for us.
Okay.
Which is awesome. And
That's
I think that
amazing.
they feel the same way too, of like when they come into our office, it's super family friendly. There's toys, you know, that kids can play with.
Sure.
There's like, we do events for the community all the time. Letters with Santa, adoption for animals.
Wow.
We generally, we offer a lot. Which is great for our agents. Like I said, it's not competitive, which is great. You have people there and they're like, okay, let's collaborate. Like, let's collaborate together and see how I can help you succeed in your business. And we just, we truly have so many great things to offer and trainings. And that's kind of the dynamic of how it is.
Sure. No, okay, you did a great job explaining that, and really paints a picture of like the kind of workspace you're working in, but the environment that you want to make your customers expect and feel comfortable in. That makes a lot of sense.
We definitely like the fact too, like our office is in Fairhaven, but like when you go in, like the way that like my mom, you know, designed it, because we had to like completely like gut it out and redo the whole office. It's super just homey feel. Because one, we're selling homes, but also like for our agents to go in too, it's homey. Like, like we have agents that bring their kids in, you know, 'cause nobody's there to watch. Not that we're asking that, why the kid, you know what I mean? But it's like, we have the toys ready. Like my clients come in with kids and, you know, sometimes they're talking with a mortgage lender right in my office and I'm entertaining their kids. I'm holding their baby.
That's
I'm like,
amazing.
But it's true. And my dog comes in and he loves to, you know, be there and stuff. Other people's dogs have come in. It truly is like that. We kind of say like, we're a real estate company, but we're also like the Rose Homes, like family. Like it's family owned, but we truly want the people that work with us to also feel like it's not just Phil, Debbie, and Abby. We want everybody to feel like this is just like the Rose Homes, like family, like together, you know?
And so I have a few more questions. We have around like 10 minutes left, okay? And so with the family, are your brothers not interested in real estate at all?
One of my brothers tried. It was not for him. It's definitely, I think, so I say I'm the one that got the real estate gene out of the three. It was something that like, it just made sense for me. And so my brothers, no, they both have two separate careers. They both have beautiful families and children. And I'm the only one that's really in the family business now. Sure.
But I mean, successful, still homey, and it must feel great to have this connection with your parents still and being able to work in the same thing.
Absolutely. And also like my family too, like my brothers, they come to like all of the events. My nephews and my niece, they're always there too. So it's super awesome. And just like I said, the agents too, their kids come in and my clients' kids come in. And I really love that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It doesn't feel stuffy. It doesn't feel like, okay, this is nervous. This is so serious. It's lighthearted. It's lighthearted, but it also is, you know, like there's experts there at the same exact time. So.
And then this is more so, the next two questions are more so like market questions. So do you deal with more buyers or sellers? Has it shifted in the last few years, or is it kind of equal?
I would say I work with more buyers at this moment. This present moment of what my business is, I work with more buyers. However, I'm definitely happy, you know, to help both sides. But yes, more buyers.
Okay. And so has that shifted in the last few years, or has that been the trend, really, that you'll always deal with more buyers?
So there's definitely more buyers than there are sellers out there because again, it's one of those like supply and demand things. So there's such a demand of buyers, and then there is not much supply or inventory for homes. So COVID stopped a lot of home building because the prices of lumber and material and also just labor like skyrocketed, and a lot of builders actually have gotten out of the industry.
Really?
Which is pretty sad.
Yeah.
You know, of course there's still tons left and things are starting to move again, but there was kind of a hiatus that's there. And I know that a lot of people talk about the interest rates and they want them to drop, which is great. But also, if they do drop to below 5, it's projected that another 2 million buyers are going to be on the market.
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
And we don't have enough houses for that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
too many buyers, not enough sellers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And so, do you deal with more apartments, houses, or condos you mentioned?
Yes,
You know?
I definitely do sales. I don't do many rentals.
Okay.
You know, I'm happy to help. Like if I have a seller that reaches out to me, or if somebody too reaches out to me personally, you know, it's like I really need a rental. If I can help, I'm gonna.
Sure.
But I really focus on sales, which includes condos, multifamily, single-family homes, vacation homes, all that good stuff.
Sure.
And then I do some commercial stuff as well.
Okay.
But primarily most of like the residential sales.
Okay.
Yeah.
And does it vary as far as for where you find the most business? When, I mean, I'm assuming you don't just work in Fairhaven, you're going to work in this area.
Yeah, absolutely. So the greater New Bedford area, South Coast, but I really go through almost all of Massachusetts. I mean, I've gone about like an hour and a half away.
Sure.
You know, there's some parts of like really Western Mass that maybe I wouldn't get into because it's so far. But yeah, I've done things up to Boston, to down through the Cape. You know, we do things in Rhode Island.
Yeah.
You know, we have agents that are licensed all throughout New England and in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
And then
Yeah, you do.
also, so I can find somebody a realtor somewhere else.
Okay.
So like I just had a friend that needed, this was a rental because it was New York.
Yeah.
But she reached out to me. She's like, hey, I have this great opportunity for work. I'm moving to New York. Can you help me find a realtor?
Okay.
And in like 2 days, I had her with like a great realtor,
Wow.
local realtor from New York.
Yeah.
I'll reach out. I'll vet somebody. So I have people from all over the place. You know what I mean? So if you need to make a move somewhere else, I can find you a local realtor, you know, right in that area quickly.
Sure. And really the last question, so you can spend some time with this, and you may be prepared to answer this or not, and I can come with a different question, but the train is going to be finished soon, okay? How do you expect that to affect business?
So it already has affected business.
Talk about
for the past even over a year now, a lot of the multifamilies have been being bought by investors from closer to Boston.
Okay.
So a lot of Dorchester, Brockton investors have come this way to the New Bedford and Fall River area to buy up our real estate because it's, you know, far more cheaper.
Okay.
However, those prices are going way up.
Yeah.
So every year I reach out to all of my clients that have bought a house with me and I give them all an equity report.
Okay.
So I give them like a full market analysis and I say, hey, just so you know, you made a great decision with your house 3 years ago.
Yeah.
This is the equity now.
Yeah.
I have clients that bought multis 4 years ago and they have almost $200,000 in equity.
Wow.
So that means that it's $200,000 more than what they bought the house for originally.
Yeah.
And that's not including of what they've already paid off on their mortgage, because that part I don't know yet. So yeah, so multifamilies right now are, you know, it's wild. You can still find some that are relatively, you know, reasonable.
Sure.
But yeah, investors are definitely banking on these cities from, you know, outskirts and larger cities to come here and start investments. So the train's already made its impact.
Yeah.
It's going to continue to make its impact if, you know, people see how easy it is to get there, and people are now, so like investors have started to come here. Now it's going to be people that are migrating from the larger cities.
Sure.
They're going to come down here and say, hey, the housing's much cheaper.
Yeah.
I'm just going to take that commuter rail, you know, up to Boston.
Yeah.
The one thing I hope though is that for our residents and our, you know, our people here, that the rental prices do not skyrocket. Because we need affordable housing for the people that are born and raised in our cities.
Yes.
So I'm a big proponent for that.
Okay.
But yeah, it's definitely already made its impact here.
And so what would be your recommendation for the residents here, how to get ahead of the curve, and to what would be your advice to how to get into the real estate market?
That's a great question. Well, definitely buy a house, then rent.
Okay.
And I know that it's easy for me to say.
Yeah.
And it's not super feasible for, everybody. I
Sure.
totally understand. However, rent creates no stability.
Sure.
So I have clients that have reached out to me and said, I am pregnant, I have 2 dogs, and my landlord just told me that I have a month to get out.
Wow.
What do I do?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Landlords will do that, and they have every
Wow.
right to do that. They have
Yeah.
30 days to say, hey, I'm selling this house.
Wow.
And sometimes you'd hope that they'd give you more of a notice, but
Yeah.
they don't. So rentals do not create stability. Owning a home creates true stability and also creates generational wealth.
Sure.
So I always recommend sit down with me and then sit down with a mortgage lender, because even if you're not ready now, what a mortgage lender will do is say, hey, okay, your credit's not quite there yet. This is what my credit stimulator is saying for you to do. We're going to get you here, and we're going to get you into the 700s, and you're going to be good to go.
Okay.
Or, hey, you still have quite a bit of money to save, but I recommend, cutting down maybe this payment,
Sure.
or doing this, and kind of get you on track to be able to buy a home. So I just, again, always recommend to start out early, inquire with, a mortgage lender, and have them just get you on the right track, even if you're not ready now. That way in a year or so, you are ready, and we're able to get you into that stable housing. Because same thing with rents too, like real estate is always gonna go up, but with real estate, that's an equity that you create. So when your rent goes up, you're just paying your landlord. That
Yeah.
money is just out of the way, completely gone.
Yeah.
So really, your mortgage payment only goes up if your home taxes go up and your insurance goes up.
Okay.
But nobody comes back and says, hey, your loan is going up
Yeah.
because of this reason. So when you have that home and you're paying it off, you now are creating equity.
Yeah.
So you can either sell that home, you can keep that home for generations to come and leave it for your kids. You can't do those things with a rental.
Sure.
So easier said than done. However, if somebody does need a resource, I'm more than happy to chat with them.
Yes.
Even if they don't think that they're ready, I'm more than happy to sit down one-on-one and do a full private, home buying class of how I can get people set up and
Wow.
truly invest in their future. So.
And I think people really need that. I mean, so I'm 26 and I just got in a serious relationship like maybe a year ago, and I am planning to be a police officer. Okay,
Oh, awesome.
and that's going to bring some.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That's going to
Yeah,
bring some
that's awesome.
stability, a good income. But now I'm thinking of, proposing and getting a house like a few years down the line. But I've only just been thinking about it
Yeah.
in like idealistic terms. But you bring up a good point to start to actually plan for it and reach out to, for instance, a mortgage lender.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. So, I mean, they don't teach us this in school.
Yes.
They don't. Like, I
Yeah.
had a finance class in school that truly was a joke. I don't think I paid attention to one thing.
Really?
And, like, it wasn't anything that we needed, like, to know.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that they don't teach us how to invest, how to properly save our money, how to know even what the stock market is and how to put funds into it, or how to buy a home and how to get into
Yeah.
real estate. They don't teach us.
Yeah.
So definitely I recommend, for anybody, just take a look at your finances. There's tons of different loan programs. So sometimes you truly don't need much money down. You don't even need money at all.
Okay.
However, it's always good to, if you're in a competitive market, you kind of need to put something down. So even if you have that down payment assistance programs, and then like FHA, I know a lot of people think that stands for first time home buyer program. It's not, but that is just 3.5% down. So a lot of people think that you need like crazy money to buy
Yeah.
a home.
Yeah.
You don't. I mean, you do need to make, pretty good money. However, the down payment assistance programs,
Sure.
I find a lot of people, when they hear assistance, they usually think low income.
Yeah.
However, that's not the case in these programs. You can actually make pretty good money and get that down payment assistance, which is great.
Yeah.
It's a huge help to have. And yeah, starting yourself off early, putting your money into like high yield savings account. That way you can truly create compounding interest. You'll be able to take that money out one day and like use that as your down payment for something. So it's all about really being smart with your finances as much as you can.
Yeah.
Don't put yourself in debt. I just bought myself a new car.
Yeah.
My old car, really, she had over 200,000 miles on
Yeah.
it. So she was on her last leg.
Yep.
But I'm the type of person that's like, if I don't need it, I'm not going to get it. I have
Yeah.
bigger things to like focus on.
Smart.
However, I see so many people come to me
Yeah.
with giant car payments. And I mean, you're not going to be able to buy a house if you have that.
Sure.
So if that is something, I always say, get a driveway, get a house with a driveway to park the car in it first.
Okay.
Because then you're all set up. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
you have the home first, figure out those finances. Then of course everybody needs a car. However, if there's something that's like, okay, this is going to be a huge purpose for me. This is going to be half of my monthly income.
Yeah.
Do something that it's after you already have, you know, that home is truly what I recommend, because there's so many people that sit down with me that because of their car payments and the debt that they're in, credit card, all that stuff, they're not able to buy a home, even if they make good money.
Sure.
So just try to be, you know, as much as you can. I know sometimes credit affects that, but negotiate with those car dealerships.
Okay.
and find you a payment that's reasonable and works for you.
Yeah.
And then just save your money and do the best that you can.
And don't be too stressed out about not having, and this will be what we wrap up on. And so thank you for giving that advice and, you know, really setting me and a lot of people at ease that even if you don't have so much money saved up, that there are resources for you to either get assistance, to get advice, and to not be discouraged that you don't have enough money in the income, in the bank account. But you definitely should start planning ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's important to even know that those programs exist.
Exactly.
So that's key, right?
Exactly.
Because some people are like, oh, I cannot afford this. I don't have any money saved. And then they sit with me and I'm like, okay, but there's mass housing. There's grants that you can get from the
Yeah.
city. There's some credit unions that give their own specific things. There's an Access One program.
Yeah.
Also, if you're a veteran, a VA loan, there's zero money down.
Yeah.
Like, I know these loans, you know, for a reason, to be able to educate people on, hey, you don't need all of that. You
Yeah.
know, this is the stepping stone. Of course, there are like stipulations, you know, certain credit scores. You could only make an X amount, but like I said, people think assistance, but it doesn't mean that it's low income. You
Sure.
can actually make good amount of money and qualify for some of these programs. So there's things out there.
Yeah. The resources are out there.
Resources out there, absolutely. And
Yeah.
never feel too, like I've had people that like, no one in my family's ever bought a house. Like, is this feasible for me? And I'm like, yes.
Yes.
Like, yes. However, it might take a few years from when you sit down with me. It might take something. It might be a mobile home that we find you. It might just be a condo. It might just be something, you know, smaller. But again, it's that stepping stone.
Yes.
Real estate is truly the best investment that you can make for yourself. It's the most equity building, you know, that you can, of really any appreciating asset that you
Yeah.
can have is real estate. It's always going to continue to go up. And like I said, you can keep it for generations. You can sell it. You can also, in real estate too, if people don't know, you can pull lines of equity out of it. So if you need a new kitchen and you have a lot of equity sitting in your house, you can take out a line of credit from the equity you have and get a whole new kitchen.
Sure.
You could also buy a car. You
Yeah,
can
yeah,
do,
yeah.
like, there's so many things that a home can truly bring you, and it's just for, you know, you think that you're kind of just living in it, but if you really know the ins and outs of real estate, you can truly use a home as a giant benefit to you. So, yeah.
Abby, thank you for coming on the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I genuinely appreciate it. This has been awesome.
I've learned so much. I know our viewers are going to learn
Good.
so much. And so this has been Wake Up New Bedford. This has been part 2 of our conversation. And this has been Abby Rose. You can find her on social media, Abigail Rose. If you need any help, this is a great resource.
Yes.
And thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Peace.
It was awesome.
I'm running, I'm running, I'm running.